And officially, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We are very happy that you are here. We've been waiting for a while to get this webinar done. I know that we've done a number of them in the recent weeks and months. But this is one that I had some real interest in making sure that it was on, particularly because some of the webinars we've done up until now kind of revolve around how it is that we work in terms of a process internally, some of the changes that we've done to the software, and some of the improvements that we make on the end of support to make sure that everything is up to standards. Today we are doing a webinar where two of our engineers are going to be going through some frequently asked questions and to provide some information that you can use to, I guess, have a better sense of the default settings inside the software and to understand some things a little bit better. Today I have Anton Husak, who is a senior engineer with the team, and I've got Semyon Elisiv, who is a member of the day-to-day duty team. They will be taking us through the frequently asked questions, and at the end, they will answer your questions live. So if you can, please hang tight for your questions, and we will put them live and answer them live as soon as we're done. For now, enjoy the talk that Anton and Semyon are going to give you, and pay attention. Ask any questions that you want at the end. Okay? Go ahead, Anton.
Sorry, Fred. Have you made an introduction?
Yes.
So let me start. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Semyon. You might have met me if you ever created a ticket in our FreeBSD portal. So today we will go through most basic, most common questions that we get here in support. And I would like to start with the most common one that we have is why did my customer calls fail? How can I find more details about reasons of call failure? And to answer this question, we should divide all errors that you can possibly face in Sippy switch into three categories. And those would be internal errors, timeouts, and vendor errors. Internal errors are usually caused by misconfiguration of a switch. This might be related to absence of routes, rates, some connection or account might be exceeding their capacity, and so on. Timeouts usually occur when vendor does not respond to the switch, does not respond to an outbound invite in a certain time, and then switch has to end the call from its end. And then last one is vendor errors, which are usually generated on the vendor side, and we will go through investigation of those errors in more details in next slides. Next one, please.
Okay, thanks, Semyon. So I'll just stop there for a second. So one of the important things that we want to get through to you as an audience today is that we are using these questions, which team members like Semyon hear on a constant basis. We're letting you know what those questions are so that if you come across those questions yourself, so you'd be able to know you're not alone. Sometimes these things pop up as issues. We're providing you the information that you will need to be able to have a better sense of how to resolve the issue by yourself, or at least what information to convey to the support team when you need support on these issues. So Semyon has now started, as you know, with the why did my customers call fail, which is a common question that we get.
Thanks, Fred. So let me go in details about how can I find more details about call errors. Investigation of call failure depends on the type of an error, and we will start with inspection of internal errors with testdl-plan tool. This tool allows to emulate an actual call of actual flow of a call with given settings. To use it, you need to put in CLD, CLI, and remote IP address that would participate in this call. And this will show you which account will be used, what tariff would it use, which routing group would it use. And in this example, you can see that a call with such setup will fail with no rate found error. And you can also see that the tariff that is missing rates is Kenny. Next one, please. The next two types of errors can be investigated with the help of zlog viewer tool. This is a very convenient tool that allows to extract a zlog of a particular call and to see a flow of a call in a convenient visual form. Here in this example, you can see how Sippy tries to reach the vendor with outbound invites and does not get any response during 10 seconds and has to drop a call with a timeout uh, and sends 500 disconnected to a caller. Next one. Same method applies to vendor errors. For example, you might be wondering which vendor ends the call and what is an error. And here in a zlog viewer, you can see how vendor rejects a call with 603 decline, and CP has to end the call and pass this response to a caller. I think that's it for me now. Anton will continue from here.
Go ahead, Anton.
Okay, thanks, Fred. Thanks, Semyon. Hello, everyone. So here I will continue talking about the most frequent call errors that you may see on the web interface. And the first question is, I've got a call failed with account use. What does it mean? This kind of CDR, it refers to the failed calls. It has a zero duration and was rejected exactly by the CP soft switch. Such CDRs can be found on the customer's call records page in the report section of the main menu. As you know, every account has the setting called max sessions. It is exactly the maximum number of active calls that one account can have at the same time. This error means that the account actually reached the max sessions limit. In the current example, we have max sessions set to 400. It means that at that moment, the account already had 400 calls in progress, and the system just rejected this very call. As a CP switch administrator, you may know how many calls does this account or that account, so you can set some limit for them, not exactly, but at least on average. So we CP recommend to set some max sessions limit for every account. It can help, for example, when the account was hacked or somebody started sending fraud calls. So the limit will prevent exactly from the running a huge volume of illegal traffic. Next, please. Of course, account in use is not the only error that you can see that is referred to the max sessions option. And it's not the only about account. There are too many different places where you can define the limit of the sessions, or somebody call them limit of the ports. One of them is customer level. The option has the same name, max sessions, and as you know, customer in CP doesn't make calls. Instead, his account make calls. But max sessions in value increases exactly for the customer. In this case, max session is calculated as a total sum of all his accounts. So as well as the max sessions limit for the customer is reached, you will see too many sessions for the customer error calls. Next goes the error connection capacity exceeded. This type of failed CDR refers to the option called capacity, and it is available in the vendor connection settings. So it's clear when the limit of the connection is reached, you will see the vendor connection capacity exceeded errors. Then we have the error too many sessions. It doesn't explain actually what limit was exceeded because it's likely a general thing. Too many sessions appears when you reach the limit which is predefined according to your license. I mean here, it is the maximum allowed limit that your system can process. In order to sort this out, you may contact our support or sales department and discuss the possibility of upgrading the license limits. And finally, starting from CP 2020, we have implemented the new limit, which is present in the authentication rules settings. And I believe the message is self-explanatory. It's too many sessions for the auth rule. Next one, please. My call failed with call loop detected error. What does it mean? The explanation of this error could be obvious, but I will try to explain why it happens and what is it needed for. Uh, as you know, there is a certain mechanism in CP soft switch which can control the call loops. Sometimes it could happen that the call is routed to your vendor, but then the vendor routes it back to your CP soft switch. It's usually a result of a configuration mistake or either on CP side or on vendor side. And this mechanism of call loop detection was developed exactly to prevent the owner of CP soft switch from such needless calls. The option is responsible for this feature is in the settings of the account, and by default it's disabled. Now I will explain how it works.
Sure.
Once
Sorry, go ahead, Ann.
once the new call hits CP soft switch, firstly the caller should pass authentication. The system has to find which account is calling. Then the system will check if this account has the disallow loops enabled, and if it's enabled, the system will take the CLI and CLD from the new call and match them against all active calls. The main point here is that while checking the list of active calls, the system is considering only those accounts who have disallow loops enabled too. And finally, if the match is found, the call is rejected and the caller receives 403 error code message. Uh, to be short and simple, just two accounts with disallow loops enabled cannot make calls with the same CLI and CLD. One of those calls will be rejected.
So,
Next one, please.
yeah, so let me just comment for a second, Anton. One of the things to note about particularly this type of error is that while they are termed errors, because the system warns you that something is happening which should not be allowed to happen, it's there for for a specific reason. And the reason in this case is to make sure that the calls don't loop, in essence, to provide an additional layer of safety. So while it's an error, it just means basically that the system is working as it is designed to work. So it's not an error in the sense that something is wrong. It's an error in the sense that something is right, and you need to look at why the error is being produced. So it's a safety feature in this case, right?
Yeah, this is the feature that was developed exactly to save you.
Yeah. Okay, so next slide then.
Thank you. My call has failed with insufficient balance error. What can I do? During the authentication process, actually the system checks if the account has enough funds to make a call. This is clear. What it does actually step by step. Firstly, it looks into the tariff of the account. It can be the tariff from the service plan or from a tariff from the authentication rule. Um, the tariff has an option called average call duration, and by default it's 200 seconds, as you can see on the screenshot. Next, the system takes the minute price and calculates the estimated cost for a call that lasts 200 seconds. If the account balance is higher than the estimated cost, the call is allowed. If account balance is lower than the estimated cost, the call is rejected. The option uh, average call duration is not only used by uh, it is not only to check the account's balance, it's also used by the other few system things. One of them is test dial plan tool. Each time you run the test dial plan, it uh, calculates the estimated cost too, and this cost is based exactly on the average call duration. Another example is loss protection feature, and each time the system tries to calculate the estimated cost for selling price and buying price and compare them. It also uses the average call duration. Next slide, please. My call has failed with call has been cancelled by calling party. What does it mean? As you know, there are widespread terms like calling party and called party. The term called party stands for the callee. It's a person who actually receives the call. Sometimes people call it side B. And in terms of CP soft switch, it can be a vendor connection or a trunk or a registered account actually. On the other side, there is a calling party. It stands for the caller, and sometimes people call it side A. It is the person who makes the call. In terms of CP soft switch, it can be a DID provider. Let's suppose that the call comes to the DID number from the outside, or it can be the account who was authorized using the authentication rule or digest. This error means that the caller decided to end his call exactly at the moment of a call setup. The reason why he did so can be actually any. For example, the caller might be impatient, which means he was waiting for too long, so he decided not to wait, just simply redial the same number again. As you already know, during the call setup, caller doesn't hear anything. There is a complete silence, and it continues till the moment when any of the remote parties starts ringing. So in this very example, the caller simply may not reach that ringing state of the call. It just ended it. Another example, actually, the reason for canceling might be the equipment. There are some soft phones that could monitor the incoming media, and they have some sort of the timer which can automatically cancel the call if there is no media, let's say within 10 seconds. Anyway, the main purpose of this error is that the call was cancelled not by the system but by the caller himself. Also, it doesn't have to be exactly the silence. The caller may hear the ringing beeps. I mean, the human factor can also be present here. Let me provide an example. Bob wanted to congratulate Alice with her birthday. But suddenly, when Alice's phone was ringing, Bob realized that he mixed up the months and Alice's birthday is not today. So he canceled the call. So to sum up, even if a call was cancelled by the caller, it doesn't mean that there is no issue on CP side. For example, there might be some misconfiguration related to timeouts. As a result, it leads to too long call setup. That's why the caller was so impatient, because nobody wants to wait for too long. So in case of any doubts or suspicious appearing of such records on your system, you are always welcome to create a ticket, and we support will analyze every such case one by one. I guess that's it for now.
Okay.
Let's move to Semyon. He will continue with more
Sure.
advanced
Let me
topics.
just make another quick comment on here on this slide. So one of the other things to keep in mind, and this relates to the message I said earlier, is that from time to time, you may assume that something is an error. For example, a call actually not being completed. As Anton explained, there may be cases where the account making that call is in fact canceling that call. So it is not an error. So when you look at a CDR, for example, you might see that the call didn't complete. But that may very well be because the calling party actually canceled that call. So one of the things that we suggest that you keep in mind as you're reviewing CDRs or as you take a look at anything that you might consider an error is look at it as a whole. Is the one call not being completed, is that an error, or is that something that just happens naturally by the fact that the calling party cancels the call? So the thing to keep in mind is there a pattern? Is there something that actually lets you think there is an actual error, or is there something in what's going on that should set some kind of alarms in your head? So it's not to take any one error as being a cause for concern. Thanks, Semyon. Sorry, thanks, Anton. Go ahead, Semyon.
Thanks, Fred. Thank you, Anton. Yes, the next question I would like to bring, another common question that we have is, where did my old CDRs go? I cannot find my old CDRs. It often happens so that in 6 months after provisioning, a customer comes to us and says that there are no CDRs for 6 months old. Well, what happens is that Sippy switch periodically cleanups old records, old call records, to optimize disk usage and keep database size in line and to keep it robust and fast. Um, the way CDRs rotate is first, after a certain period, they get moved into archives, and after a certain period, those archives get purged and removed. These settings can be configured in System Parameters tab. Here on this screenshot, you can see that CDRs that are older than 6 months will be moved into archives, and archives that are older than 6 months will get purged. This brings us to the next slide. No, I think it should be previous one. Well, anyways, how do I set proper retention policies? This depends on a traffic profile that your system runs. For systems with large volumes of traffic, with high number of concurrent calls, high number of calls per second, this may be required to keep retention policies and retention cycles for a shorter cycle, more aggressive cycle, not to get database overloaded, not to get all this space occupied. On the other hand, some countries, country authorities require you to keep CDRs for longer so they can request them. In such case, you can keep it up to a year or more, but keep in mind that you might require an additional storage to keep all the data you need. Next one, please. The next question is, should I keep the values of any configuration as default? Our support team and our sales team, all our team are constantly working on improvement of documentation we have. Most of the features you will find on your web interface and most of the settings, they all have description in our knowledge base, but in case they don't, usually when you create some entity in Sippy switch, they have default values, which are selected on average from the industry standards. And unless you do know what these settings do, we recommend to keep them default. In any case, if you see some advanced settings that relate to some timeouts or on-net routing, I would recommend to keep them default unless you know exactly why you need to change them, because it might negatively impact call processing in some cases. In any case, if you have any doubts, please feel free to visit our knowledge base or contact our support, and we will be happy to advise you on all the questions that you might get possibly.
Okay, let me just make a quick comment here, Semyon, or actually
Yeah.
ask Anton a question. Anton, if I was if I was using the system as a customer and I changed one of the default settings and then I thought, maybe I shouldn't have changed that. Is there a way that I can see what the default setting was, or is there a way for me to go back and make that change to what it originally was as set as default? Can you maybe give me some tips as to how I might find the original settings?
Yeah, right. There is actually a possibility to see the default settings. For example, when you changed some setting, let's say destination set, and you forgot that was it before. So in order to do that, you just close the destination set and try to add the new one. Once you click the Add New Destination Set button, the window will appear and all the options will be filled in with default settings, default values.
Oh, okay. So that's simple enough. Thanks. Semyon, go ahead. I think you're still on.
Yes. Yes, another question we often get is, can I translate SIP response codes? And the answer is yes. You can translate response codes that you receive from your vendor, or you can also translate internal responses that are generated by the switch. In a fresh version, CP 2020, we get this functionality available on our web interface. And as you can see, you can put in code, out code, and for external errors, you can also, external translations, you can also apply them on account class basis. So you can create some separate account class and apply this translation only for accounts that require them, or you can apply it to a default class. So those translations would be applied to all accounts. This relates to external translations. Internal responses that are generated by the switch can only be translated for the whole system, for all accounts. Um, this is what we have in CP 2020. In older versions, this is being done by database insertions by our support team. So if you want to apply a translation on an older version, just create a ticket and let us know what should be incoming code and what should be outgoing code translation that you want to apply, and we will be happy to assist you. Or just apply for updates to the new version. I think that is it for me now. Anton?
Thanks, Simon. I will continue then. Next question is, I've got an audio issue while calling. What can I do? Actually, the absence of audio is a quite widespread issue, and investigation of this type of an issue can differ. And actually, the reason why it happens can be any. For example, during the negotiation, Bob confirmed one port for the media, but due to some reason, he started sending media from another port. As a result, the media can be dropped or not received at all. The same situation can happen when, for example, Bob decides to change the codec for the media, because uh, when he would like to change the codec, he has to agree that with the other party. Otherwise, there will be one-way audio. Besides of that, the audio issue can be caused even by the CP soft switch. When media stream comes to the CP in the wrong order, that could be also the reason why the packets are dropped. You know, each RTP packet can be marked with a sequence number, and this sequence is like a counter that increases with every packet. So if the media packet starts coming to CP source switch in a wrong order, those packets that are outside the order, they will be dropped. Theoretically, it's not a CP side fault because it's the remote side sends packets in the wrong order, and CP simply ignores the packets because someone doesn't follow the rules. There are some other things or actions which you can do on your own in order to overcome this issue. Firstly, you may try to change the RTP flow. I have provided the picture on the slide. The uh, bottom case, it is the case when the media relay is enabled and the RTP goes through the Sippy soft switch. There could be host blockers on the way of RTP flow, so it could happen that they can block the RTP flow. Another case is on the top. There we have the media relay disabled and RTP goes directly between the callee and the caller. There could be also some host, but the main difference is that they may not block RTP. So if you switch the media relay to off for this case, you will change the way of RTP flow, and as a result, it might help to overcome the audio issue. This very example doesn't say that you should always disable the media relay. The situation can be opposite, so the host blockers can be present on the top part but absent on the bottom. So I just want to say here that switching media relay on or off may help to change the RTP flow chain. And as a result, of course, help to fix the audio issue. Another thing you can do is more related to the gather information. In order to help us and to be on the same page, we will appreciate if you can collect all the needed information about the issue beforehand. What can be required? First of all, it's the call ID, because this is the main identificator of the call. Of course, media relay should be enabled because when RTP bypasses the CP soft switch, it makes the troubleshooting impossible. You may gather the TCP dump trace, where both signaling and RTP packets are present from both remote sites, and provide clear and detailed explanation of this issue. For example, if audio disappears at some certain moment of time, this should be indicated in the description. And once we as CP support have all this information on our plate, it won't be so difficult for us to find out why it happens, where it happens, what can be done to troubleshoot further, or even what can be done to fix it permanently. Next slide, please. My customer made a call, but I can't find the CDR. Where can I find it? From the first sight, it might look like this is a difficult case to investigate, but in fact, it's not so. If your customer made a call, but you don't see the CDRs, you don't see it on the CDRs page, it means only that the caller did not pass the authentication. Such call attempts are not present on the web interface. They can be found in the SIP logs directly on the server. So this is the case when we may help you. In order to troubleshoot this issue, first of all, we need to find the call attempt. In order to do that, you need to collect all possible information about the call and provide to us. The main points to provide can be what number was dialed and what was the remote IP or source IP. Once we have this information, we may search through the SIP logs and find your call attempt. In most cases, such calls end up with 401 unauthorized message. There is, of course, a possibility of troubleshooting such issues on your own, and there are several ways of doing this. First one, as far as I recall, I already mentioned, and it's the search through the entire SIP logs directly on the server. The second one could be gathering the TCP dump with the help of our tool on the web interface. In this case, you need to know the remote IP of the caller. And the third one is to verify your configuration with the help of the test dial plan. In this case, you need to know as much as possible about the call, because there you need to specify the remote IP and port, especially the port. If it's not default one is 5060. So if it's not default, you need to set it there. Pay attention to the CLD. CLD also should be the same as it comes to the CP soft switch. If it has the plus in the front, so you need to set the plus too. And sometimes customers use CLI during the authentication methods. So if you use two, then specify the CLI in the test dial plan as well. So if the parameters are correct, in 99% of cases, you will get an error from the test dial plan, and it will say the call cannot be authenticated. That means that you are on the right way. It only means that there is no authentication setting on your switch. So let me sum up all we have here. Searching through the entire SIP logs and collecting a TCP dump will give you only the picture of what's happening. But after these checks, you at least confirm the remote IP and the dialed number. Next, the authentication error on test dial plan page will confirm the fact that the authentication setting is missing. So the only thing will be left is actually to add the missing authentication setting and wait till the test dial plan stops showing the error. And then go ahead and call. That's it. Fred, your turn.
Yeah. So thank you, Anton. Thank you, Semyon. So one of the things that you could see from the last couple of slides and questions that Anton addressed there was the fact that from time to time, as I mentioned in previous slides today, is that there are errors which take place by the necessity of the configuration of the system itself, or by the necessity of how your downstream account is configured. So that, for example, if there's an RTP blocker, as Anton mentioned a couple of slides back, what will end up happening is that the media will in fact be blocked by the sheer fact that that RTP blocker is there. So it's important to realize that because you see, simply because you see an error, that does not mean that there is something erroneously taking place inside the system. So there may just be a disconnect between your callee party and the soft switch, but that may not be necessarily because of the switch itself, but because of the configuration settings of the calling accounts. So just to keep in mind, as Anton said, keep the information clear and make sure that you collect as much as possible so that you are able to provide a strong picture for the team to look at and try to resolve. For now, I think that we've got some time for questions. Thank you, Anton and Semyon again. I will take a question here from Next VoIP. They say, I don't know if this is related to what we're going through, but we'll answer it. I'd like to know if you will integrate the possibility to see the CPS used by each account or customer. Anton, do you want to get answer this?
I don't know, maybe actually we have this on our roadmap or not, but in fact I find this a good thing because currently we only display the CPS and CC values for the whole environment, right? So I think it would be good to display them per account basis.
Okay, and I've got a question here on my Skype. John asks, what is inappropriate or a suggested CDR restoration period? So how long should CDRs be stored to optimize the system, I guess? Anton, sorry.
Yes, if I may answer.
Sure,
this
go ahead,
question.
Semyon. Good.
As I said, this actually depends on the traffic profile that you have and requirements of your government policies. Uh, Normally, it should be somewhere between 6 and 12 months, but you can set it more, you can set it less. You just need to keep in mind that restoration of archived CDR is a paid procedure. So if you need to keep them longer, you should set retention policies a bit higher.
Okay, which actually it brings up a valid point. One of the things that we're trying to do with the webinars, as you might have seen from the last webinar that we did, is that we want to provide as much information to you so that you are knowledgeable and so that you are aware of our procedures and how we look at things so that you can make the most out of the support that you get from us, so that you can make the most out of the time that we spend in discussions with you, either on River or on Skype or on one of the support tickets that you file. You make by providing clear information, concise information, and complete information, and by investigating issues on your own at first, we should be able to provide a more efficient way of working together. So part of what we're doing with these webinars is informing you as much as possible so that you are stronger and more capable of working with us to resolve your issues in a timely manner. I think that that's almost one more question. I've got here a question from Claude. Are all hosted folks moving to AWS? I think this is a question for the ops team, but I think one of the things that we are doing is in fact moving some of the existing customers who are on our bare metal servers. We are actively moving them to AWS. I don't know if it will be everybody. There may be requirements by I don't know, authorities governing the customer itself, which might prevent them from going on the cloud. I'm not sure, but at this point, we are actively moving customers to the AWS cloud, hosted customers. So I guess there isn't a definite every customer is going to AWS, but we are moving customers to AWS. Anton, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
You are totally right. So if you would like to be moved to AWS, so each case is considered one by one. So you just need to write to Sippy or to sales directly. So and we will consider the case of moving to AWS.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so what about keeping the IP? I'll answer this. I'll ask Anton to answer this last one, Claude. But Anton, go ahead. He wants to know if keeping the IP if you move over to AWS. So right now they're on IBM. I don't think, from my knowledge, Claude, I don't think that an IBM IP address would serve you on AWS. I think that even if you have a universal IP address on IBM, that would be something you could use on AWS. As you know, AWS has its own subnets and all of that. So you may not, from my knowledge, be able to use that IBM address on AWS. But I'm not a technician. So Anton?
I can add few words here. So as far as I know, moving the IP from IBM to AWS is impossible, but as far as I know, most of our customers uses domain names. So if Claude's domain name is already pointed to his IP, so we can, or he can just redirect the domain name to the new IP, and that would solve the issue.
Yeah, that's a good tip. So you might want to consider a domain name, Claude. Using the domain name, obviously you'd be able to use that on AWS. So that way the IP is not visible to your customers. They just use the domain name, and you can go anywhere you want with that domain name. So take that into consideration. I guess for now, that's it for questions. We thank you, everybody, for tuning in to watch us today, to pay a little bit of attention to what we've tried to present to make you more informed. As always, we're very happy to keep these webinars going. We want to do more. If you have some ideas of what you would like to see, we welcome your input. Please let us know. I'm particularly very interested in ideas so that I don't have to think as much to come up with ideas for webinars. For now, on behalf of Anton, on behalf of Semyon, and on behalf of myself, Fred, and Sippy Software, we thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you again.